Imagine that you are Sabrina Butler. You grew up in poverty, endured racism and oppression. You are a high school dropout, married at age 15 with two young children by age 17. Life is hard, but your worst nightmare occurred on April 11th, 1989. Your 9-month-old son died, and you attempted to save his life. 12 police officers questioned you, and 3 detectives interrogated you. They interrogated you without your mother, father, brothers, or an attorney. They charged you with a crime you did not commit: capital murder. During the trial, they found you guilty of capital murder, and then the court ordered you to death by lethal injection. You endured abuse all your life. However, that abuse was heaped on you by ambitious people hiding within a system that was unreal. Why would powerful men rush to put a powerless young girl to death? Now you wake up and your nightmare is over. Nevertheless, enlightened citizens must work to end a corrupt system designed to kill the powerless, guilty or innocent. A civilized society does not want to miss the opportunity to right the wrongs. I am honored to have Sabrina Butler Smith on Open Mic. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's what you're going to hear on my podcast, Open Mic. I'm going to tell you things that most lawyers won't tell you. We expose the truth and bring you justice. I want you to go for the win in law and in life.
You want an honest man, but you don't understand. I won't be here when.
Welcome.
Hi, Mike. Nice to thank you for having me, Amit.
It's my pleasure. I just read that from your website, which I find very powerful. I'm going to put the link so people can get to it. But I believe you're our 8th exoneree we've had on Open Mic, and your story is chilling. And I'm just honored that you are here. Thank you. And let's jump right in. This all happened with the tragic death of your infant son, Walter, that turned into an even bigger tragedy when you were charged with his murder. You were just 17 at the time of his death, 18 at the time of trial. Tell us what happened on April 11th, 1989 to your 9-month son.
Well, at that time, I had been in Columbus, Mississippi alone since I was 14 years old because me and my mom didn't have such a good relationship. And when I got pregnant with my oldest son, she married me away to his father. And so that's how I ended up in Columbus, Mississippi by myself. And then that marriage, my marriage only lasted like a year or so before we divorced and split up. And then I tried to go back to school and put myself in school and try to finish my education. And I met someone else and ended up pregnant again, and with my second son, little Walter. On the incident in question, I had finally ended up getting me an apartment, and I had moved to downtown Columbus, and I didn't have a car or telephone or anything like that when I moved into the apartment complex. No one knew me where I stayed. So it was just basically me and my younger son. My oldest son was at his grandparents' house. And back then I used to like to do a lot of jogging and stuff like that. And the way this happened was one night I decided to put my son to sleep, and I put him in the bed. And in the apartment complex where I stayed, it was in a dead end. And I decided to jog to the end of the street where the apartments were and then turn around and jog back. That was wrong, but at the time I was young, and sometimes I made, not good decisions. And so when I got back to the house, I kind of knew when my son would wake up. So I went in the kitchen to get his bottle. And when I went and got his bottle, I went in his room. As soon as I went in his room, I noticed something was wrong. He wasn't breathing, so I didn't know what to do. First thing I did was I grabbed him, because I didn't I didn't know how to do no CPR and nothing else. So I grabbed him and I started yelling. I ran outside and it was like 11, 12 o'clock at night. And I was beating on any door. Anybody would listen. Some lady next door to me, she came out and she told me, her kids was in the bed and she didn't have time. So she closed the door in my face. So I had to run downstairs. And when I ran downstairs, I was beating on those doors and some lady from the inn apartment, she came out, she grabbed my son and she took him in and put him on the floor. She was a white girl, younger white girl. She put him on the floor and she started CPR. So I ran out and I finally got this couple to take me to the hospital. So when I went back in the apartment, I asked her, I didn't ask her anything. She just told me to blow in his mouth, hold his nose, and press in his stomach. I would later find out that was the wrong way. I applied adult CPR to my son all the way to the hospital, but I was scared. I was just trying to get him to breathe. I could remember saying, baby, breathe. And I was crying and I was upset. So when we got to the hospital, they took him from me and they stayed back there a long time with him. And then what was going through my mind at the time was that, man, you're in so much trouble because, you left your son in the house, and you're fixing to go to jail. But never in a million years did I think these people would charge me with murder. That wasn't even nowhere on my mind. But I knew I couldn't be honest.
Sabrina, was your son healthy up until this point?
Yes. He didn't exhibit any signs to let me know something was wrong.
And
that's why I didn't know anything was wrong.
And had he had his regular shots and regular pediatrician appointments up until 9 months?
He had his shots and everything. The only problem that they said they saw was an irregular heartbeat. So I had took him to the doctor 2 weeks prior to that for the irregular heartbeat, but they said they couldn't see anything. They couldn't find anything. So I thought everything was okay.
And he never broke any bones before 9 months. He was never in a hospital for falling off a couch or anything like that.
No, when we first got out of the hospital, he had pneumonia.
Okay.
Both of us had it. Both of us had to end up going back in the hospital for that.
And did
that
you
was
call?
The only thing.
Did somebody call 911 during all this, or did you just take him to the hospital because
I just took him straight to the hospital?
Okay.
From there.
And then let me ask you this. So you're at the hospital, the workers, the nurses and doctors are working on your son. You're out there panicking because you thought you were in trouble because you left him alone.
Right.
And then what happened?
I said to myself, I had to lie. So I wasn't honest. I just started making up anything that I could make up because I was scared and I, knew that was wrong to leave him at the house by himself. I knew that part was wrong, but I didn't deserve what they did to me.
No, of course not. What were the lies you were telling?
I can remember everything. I can't remember everything that I said. Just whatever they asked me, I would have to go back because this case is like 30-some years, almost 30 years old. But I can remember just saying, I had somebody, friends over or something. I think I said, I left him at a babysitter's house or something like that. I think I said about
Did
a baby.
I might have read that you went jogging, that you told them you went jogging with the baby.
Yeah.
Does that sound?
It's a lot of versions. I think it's a lot of versions. It's
you were panicking. You were panicking.
Yeah. I was just trying to figure out, I was lying. I told a lie is what I did because I was scared.
And did you ever try to blame a babysitter?
I did. I said I had a babysitter over to the house or something like that. I think I said.
So there were lots of lies, which did not help in what happened.
Right. It did not happen. It did not help.
So the doctors came out and told you your son had passed?
No, they told me to come in the room where he was. And I can remember sitting and holding him. And a lot of those statements were done during that time. So that's why I'm telling you, I don't remember everything that I did say. I probably could have said I was an elephant. I don't know what I didn't say because the thought in my mind, what I could remember so vividly was that these people were lying to me because nobody looked like me. Everybody was, white and everybody was, it was like I was outside of myself and I was trying to get up and leave and take my baby with me. I can remember that vividly because, they were saying you can't take him with you. You can't. And I remember arguing with them. So I know that I wasn't the way I should have been when they were talking to me. So after that happened, I had to go to the police station. Went down to the police station and I continued telling lies is what I did. And so they told me to go home. So I went home the same night this happened. I couldn't wait for the sun to rise because I was too busy trying to figure out what had happened. I was walking around trying to figure out why did he stop breathing, what was wrong. So I found a way back to the hospital the next morning. And I was headed into the hospital when the detectives were there. And they came and they said, well, we need to take you back down for more questioning. And they put me in the back of the police car and they took me to the police station. Before I could get in the room good, before I could sit down, they started yelling and jumping in my face. And this went on for like 4 hours. I know I was in interrogation for 4 hours. I mean, everything that I tried to say, when I finally did break and tell the truth about me leaving the house, he said, no, that's not what happened. Oh, God. He said, no, that's not what happened. He said, excuse me. He said, you stomped your baby. You beat him. That's what you did. He said, you killed his baby. You did this. And I said, no, sir, I did not kill my son. Yes, you did. This is what you did. Everything that I was telling him, he was balling up, throwing it in the trash. And there was another detective in the room with me. And he sat there the whole time. He really didn't say nothing. It was just the lead detective. And so after so many hours of interrogation, I was just done. I was exhausted. I was tired. And he threw the paper in my face and he said, sign this.
So when you were being interrogated at the police station, had your baby already passed, or did you not know what was happening with your baby's health?
Yeah, he had already passed. That was the next day, but I didn't know what he passed from. Nobody said anything to me. Nobody told me anything. They just told me that they couldn't save him.
So you said earlier, you finally got to the truth where you told them you left the baby, you got back, the baby wasn't breathing, and the officers or detectives are saying, no, that's not what happened. You beat your baby, you stomped your baby. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. So then what happened next?
Then the last thing, they read me my rights. But when they read me my rights at that age, I thought that you have the right to remain silent meant be quiet until spoken to. I had no clue of any legal. I didn't know, you know what I'm saying? I didn't understand that at that age.
Did you ask for your mother or father and say, I'm only 17, or you didn't know to say that?
I was so scared. I didn't know I didn't ask anything. They scared me to death.
And were you writing statements out?
No, I was talking. And then he was writing when I was talking. And then he said, no, this is not what happened. So he balled it up and threw it in the trash.
And then eventually, because I've read all your stuff, you signed a confession.
Yes, I did.
And what do you remember about that?
What I remember about the confession is I did not sign where he told me to. I signed at the bottom of the page because I felt like somebody would see this and say, well, if this is so true, why did she sign right here? Why didn't she put it on the line? And then it did come up in the second trial. So, that was the only thing I knew to do, was to sign not where he told me to.
So tell me what did you confess to?
He told, I confessed to hitting my child.
In the stomach?
Yes.
And what did you eventually learn how your child died? I mean, in that week or 2 weeks?
I did not learn that in that week or 2 weeks. I did not learn what my child died from until the second trial, when I ended up with 2 new attorneys. So wow. I never knew.
So what happened after the confession is signed? Were you immediately arrested?
Immediately arrested, and I was charged with a child abuse charge that wasn't even a law until 23 days after I was already arrested and locked up. Did
they let you out so you could plan a funeral for Walter, or how did that work?
Was not able to grieve, was not able to go to a funeral, didn't know where he was buried until 2 years after I got out.
Wow. So they charged you. Did they tell me about getting your first attorney?
The attorneys that I got didn't know about them until 2 days before the trial. I learned that I had Mosley Studiff and Richard Burdine. Those were my court-appointed attorneys that I had gotten.
Wait. Hold on. You didn't meet them until 2 days before
2 days before trial. 2 days before trial. They was on paperwork. That I had gotten. But the first little, once you go to the preliminary hearing or whatever that is, you go to it first. But I did not actually officially meet them until 2 days before trial. So I had no preparations. I did not understand what I had to do, what I was supposed to do until then. All they told me to do was sit and look at the jury.
Okay. My mind's a little blown by that.
Because
So
they only got $1,000 for my case. That's all they got for a capital case back then.
I mean, that's outrageous. What year is this again?
89.
89.
90 when I made it to trial.
It's outrageous. So tell me what you remember about that trial.
I remember that it was not a jury of my peers. I'm sitting here looking at everybody and nobody looked like me except for one person. And I mean, I knew in my heart that it was over for me. I knew that because they did not call one witness, not one, not even the girl that did the CPR before me. They did. She sat in the back of the courtroom the whole trial. And I'm thinking because she was white, they didn't call her.
Are you being verbal? Are you saying anything? Are you asking questions? Or are you just sitting there quiet?
When I was next to my attorney, I told him, I said, please let me take the stand. Let me tell what happened. He said, no, we have this thing nipped in the bud, was his actual words. We have this thing nipped in the bud. We don't want you to take the stand. While popping candy and drunk during the whole trial.
Drunk?
He was drunk during the whole trial. Richard Burdine was the second chair, and he was drunk during the whole trial. The first chair didn't do anything. He didn't call anybody.
So let's just focus on the first trial, of course. But so tell me, what do you remember? The prosecution, from what I read, focused on your statement, the confession and the baby's, Walter's internal injuries in the stomach. Is that what you remember?
Yes, I remember that.
And how many days, do you remember how many days this trial was?
A week.
1 week.
1 week.
And you knew in your heart as you're sitting there that you were just getting railroaded. You were getting screwed.
I knew it. I mean, because even the judge, everybody looked at like they didn't have anything to any attention where it comes to my attorney. The jury was even looking on the floor. When my lawyers got up to talk, they were looking on the floor at the ceiling. They just looked like, yeah, we're gonna throw you away. We don't care what he say. And then every time the district attorney spoke to say something, he called me a liar. He called me a monster. He made me out to be the worst person. He told him that I haven't told the truth yet. And, my baby suffered this type of, I let him, I just sat there and watched him die, that kind of stuff to them. And that was hurtful for me to hear because this was my son and I loved him with all my heart. And I did not kill my child. And that, to not be able to say anything about it was what pissed me off the most, because I went to them for help and they called me a murderer. Even though I went jogging, that still did not mean that I should die and that I killed my son. I didn't know how to do CPR, but that wasn't murder. And so I sit there and I knew that this was a racist situation that I was sitting in and that I didn't have a prayer in hell because I was poor, Black, and uneducated. And they took advantage of that. That's exactly it in a nutshell.
And what happened. And what did the jury look like? Were they all white?
Yes, majority white. I think I had one Black alternate, and then I had one Black sitting on the jury. So I knew that my life was over just by looking at that. That's why in all the pictures you see me on, the newspaper clippings, I didn't have no smile on my face. I looked mad because I was frustrated and overwhelmed at what was going on, and I knew nobody believed.
And the woman who actually helped you while your son was suffering and not breathing was in the courtroom, and your drunk defense attorney didn't have the thought to put her on the stand.
They did not put her. They didn't call one witness, not one.
How does that happen? And I mean, you must have wanted to go nuts and say, Judge, what the hell is going on here?
Get up and scream to talk about, but you're at the mercy of your lawyers. You're thinking, because I didn't know anything about the law. I didn't understand all that legal mumbo jumbo stuff they were saying. I thought that my attorneys had my back, but unfortunately they didn't have my back. And the lead chair knew that in the end. He really was distraught. Because he actually thought he won the case. And I don't see how he could have felt that he won a case when he didn't do no investigative work at all on my case, which I can understand why, because they only got paid $1,000. So they couldn't get experts or nothing else because they didn't have the money to do it with. So I know he probably felt hopeless, but that didn't help me because I ended up with the death penalty.
You jumped ahead. So the jury came back. You're sitting in the courtroom. They found you guilty of capital murder. What the heck is going through your head at this point?
I was broken. I was broken because I knew, like I said, I think I braced for it because I already knew it was coming. And when the judge told me to stand up, he said, to stand before the court for, when I went back for sentencing, he said, we find you guilty. We charge you with capital murder. We charge you with capital murder, lethal injection, or whatever the case may be. And he said, may God have mercy on your soul. And I said, no, may God have mercy on your soul because you just don't know what you did. And I walked out the court. That was the only thing that I could say because there wasn't nothing else left to say. They had just stripped me of everything I thought.
And when the judge sentenced you to death, could you believe those words were coming out of his mouth?
Yes, I actually could because I already knew that the cards were stacked against me. It's just like you going into I don't know how to explain it, but if you're going into something that you already know, you can kind of halfway see that it's not for you. You kind of know what the outcome is going to kind of be. That's the way I felt.
Was there ever a hearing that your defense attorneys put up a defense that you should not be put to death?
No, not that I went to. Not that I went to. Most of my time was spent in the county jail. I don't know what they did. That's why I can't tell you anything about that first trial. It was like a blur.
So you were the only woman on death row. What was life like in prison and on death row?
I wasn't the only woman. I was the youngest Black female on death row at the time. That same county had just sentenced another girl, I think 2 or 3 years before me. She was Black. And she turned out to be my savior while I was on death row.
How so?
Because she had already went through her death date. And my death date was, I was sentenced March the 13th of 1990. And my death date was July the 2nd of 1990. So that day right there for me was one of the worst days ever because nobody told me that the state had to exhaust all state remedies before they could actually carry out a death sentence. So, man.
So your attorneys didn't explain this to you? Nobody
told me nothing.
So and this day coming up on the calendar and you thought you were going to die that day?
I thought I was going to die that day. I paced the floors. I listened for every sound, every chain, because I thought they was actually coming to kill me because nobody told me. And how I knew anything was the inmate next door to me who said, Sabrina, they can't kill you because you haven't been back to court yet. Just hang in there. It's going to be okay. They can't do anything. That's how I knew. But I didn't get that from my attorney.
It's unbelievable.
That's one of the hardest things, to know that you are going to die and nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do about it. Nothing.
So wow. So thank God for this woman being with you. Tell me about the appeal process.
The appeal process came and I ended up with a new attorney called Clive Stafford Smith. He's from England, and Rob McDuff. Clive was looking at cases in Mississippi at the time, but Mosley Suddup, the first chair in my case, was so sad about what had happened. So he called Clive and asked him would he come to Mississippi to fight my case. And that's how I ended up with Clive. And Clive came in and started doing investigative work. He said when they first came, they didn't have a dollar to their name, but they still did what it took to fight for my life.
And it looks like 2 years later, Clive and his team convinced the state Supreme Court, 1992, that the prosecution improperly commented at trial on your decision not to testify, which is a constitutional violation. That's like law school 101. Do you remember what the prosecutor said about that at trial?
He said that I hadn't told the truth yet, and that I haven't even took the stand to tell the truth about what happened.
Day one of law school, you learned that that's improper argument. I wonder if your defense attorney even objected to that. Do you
He
remember?
did. That's the reason. Yes, he did. I
I mean,
remember that.
that
He
is so.
objected. If he hadn't have did that, I wouldn't be sitting here. I don't think.
So he did one good thing.
He did one good thing. Yes, he did.
So because of that, you were granted a new trial, it looks like. Does that sound right?
Yes, that's right.
And it took a couple of years to get that
3
new trial.
years.
So you're sitting on death row for three more years.
They overturned my sentence in 92 and they sent me back to the county jail, and I sat in the county jail 3 more years because Forrest Allgood, he was very vindictive and very, just nonchalant. So he just kept putting it off and the judge kept granting it. Clive would write him and he just kept, I got this. Can I get a continuous? Can I get a continuous? That's what he did for 3 years. And they let it win.
Did any of your attorneys try to get you out on bond?
No, they said I wouldn't afford the bond because it was a capital case in Mississippi. Said I didn't have, I wasn't eligible for a bond, so I couldn't get out. Before
we get to the second trial, tell me about your family. Tell me about your first child. Tell me, like, what's going on is your family supporting you? Are they visiting you? Do you have support during this time?
My mom, which we wasn't close, like I told you at first, but when I got the death penalty and my mom heard about it, she came in and she called me at the jail one day and she said, Sabrina, I want to ask you something. She said, I just need to know. She said, did you kill your child? And I said, no, Mama, I did not. And she said, that's all I need to know. And when I told her that, she became a warrior for me. Mom was all in the news. She stayed in the news the entire time to fight for me. She went homeless and everything, trying to fight, to let people know what Mississippi was doing. And so, she became my best friend before. She's no longer with me now. She died of cancer, but she became my best friend before all of this was over. But she really fought for me.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So let's talk about the second trial. Were the gentlemen that you mentioned, Clive and his team, were they the lawyers who handled your second murder trial?
Yes. Yes.
And were you more optimistic for this one?
I was, because Clive came to the prison. He sat down, he talked to me, and he explained me, what I needed to do. And at that time, I was more knowledgeable because they had a law library at the prison and they let us read law books and stuff. And that's when I found out the first attorney that I had, which was the second chair, was a divorce attorney. So he had no business on my case and he had a whole bunch of claims against him. So he really, you know what I'm saying? He had no business doing a capital case.
Did either of those attorneys get disciplined as far as you know?
Not as far as I know, no. And so then when Clive was talking to me, I had a little bit more knowledge and I was more understanding because I was older. Because I vowed that I wasn't going to go through the same thing, not knowing what these people were doing to me. So I read a lot of books. I wrote a lot of letters, just anybody that would listen. And so Clive came and he was brilliant. He talked to me and they told me what was going on. They prepared me for every step of the way, bad and good, both sides.
And that's what a good defense attorney is supposed to do. I'm so thrilled that you found a better team. So tell me about the second trial. How was it different?
Clive, at the time back then, like what we have now, you got databases and stuff where you can put stuff in and type and find out different ailments and all that stuff. They didn't have that back then. So Clive literally had to go to a medical library to research the different problems that Lil Walter had. He found out that it was nephrotic syndrome, which today I have a daughter that has the same disease. It's a kidney disease that my son died from, my daughter has. And he had heart problems and he had chronic bowel syndrome. Chronic bowel syndrome is what caused him to get peritonitis in his system to begin with, because he could not defecate and it poisoned his oxygen supply in his blood. That's what killed him, because I didn't know any of these internal things were going on. But then at the time we did the CPR, we didn't know how to do CPR. So whatever was going wrong, we probably made it worse by pressing on his chest, because his abdomen was extended. So I can remember that. So we didn't do it right. I know I didn't apply CPR right to his abdomen.
Was there an autopsy?
There was an autopsy, but at the time, Mississippi throwed it together. They did not have the money to do a proper autopsy report. There were no microscopic slides, no nothing. The autopsy was inadequate. It didn't have anything in it. It was a guy that was walking down the street one day that saw an ambulance service. And he said, oh, I'm going to buy this ambulance service. He bought the ambulance service and he signed part of my son's death certificate. Now, how could you do that? I have no clue. You know what I'm saying? They did a lot of stuff that was crazy. I never in my life seen anything like that. I found that out after I got out. But back up. During the trial, Clive, the same detective that wrote the statement out, Clive went and got a bear that was the same height and weight as my son and told the detective to do the CPR. He said, well, now you show me how Sabrina Butler did CPR on this child, or how do you do CPR on a child? He did it the same way I did it, adult CPR. And he told him, he said, you just killed the child by what you just did.
Wow.
You know, and it was showing that they didn't even know how to do CPR. So how can you expect me at 17 to know how to do something like that?
That's powerful. So were there any witnesses called at your second trial?
All the witnesses were called. Everybody that should have been called in the first trial was called in the second trial.
Including
Even
the woman who did
the CPR.
Who did the CPR, and she was favorable to you, the neighbor?
Yes. Everybody told exactly what happened. You know, because Forrest Allgood was trying to make me out to be this monster person, didn't have any feelings, didn't care about my son dying, and everybody came to the stand and said that's not true. We heard her screaming to the top of her lungs. She was crying. You know, they just told everything that they saw at that time.
Did you take the stand in the second trial?
I didn't have to. He had all the evidence. I didn't have to. He had all the evidence, and he proved that I didn't kill my child. So he said it wasn't no need for me to take it.
And tell me about the jury makeup. Was it any better than the first trial?
It was more. It was a jury of my peers this time, and I think I had maybe three or four whites, I think, on the jury.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the jury acquitted you.
Yeah.
They
in
said
an hour. In an hour.
1 hour?
1 hour.
Well, they probably had to get lunch, and I mean, it could have taken them 5 minutes, probably. It sounds like, based upon having a good defense team in place. Well, congratulations, obviously, on that. That is amazing. I love that part of the story. Tell me one other thing, because we do have a lot of people who listen and watch these things, and they love to get into the weeds on this. You did have an expert witness on the second trial?
I did. I had an expert witness. I even had the doctor who recanted his story on the stand, Lil Walter's doctor. Because at first he was saying in the first trial, when he took the stand, he said that he didn't think CPR caused the injuries that he saw on the child. Then the second, when he came back, he said that he had made a mistake.
Wow.
Yeah.
I keep saying wow.
And then Ricky, I think Ricky Hicks was he was the coroner, and he told the truth that Mississippi didn't have enough money to do a proper autopsy report on little Walter at the time, and that, you know, they just did minimal. So Clyde was saying, well, how could you charge somebody with murder, say that it's a homicide when you don't know exactly what her child died from? All of the, everything that you have written here is inadequate. It's not complete, because it has at the bottom of his death certificate related to the cause of death. It does not say this is what your child died from. It does not say that. So when I got out December the 18th of 1995. I didn't find out about it until like 4 or 5 years later that my son's death certificate was still inadequate and wasn't written right. You know what I'm saying? It still was related to my case. So I have an attorney now who went back and found out more information of how they did it. And so now we're going against them to fix the death certificate. Even now, this is 21.
Wow. And so as you were sitting in the second trial, I mean, the way you tell the story, it's just night and day, the two trials. Were you sitting there way more confident than you were the first trial?
I was so confident, and I was excited and happy, and I kind of understood what was going on. You know what I'm saying? I was more confident, even though I still had my apprehensions because, hey, I just came from death row, it still could go bad. I still could go to, Clyde prepared me for all of that. He prepared me for the jury if they sway the other way, if they don't, he told me everything. He was upfront. And that's what I think lawyers should be upfront with the client, meet them where they are, tell them exactly what's going on. Don't sugarcoat it. You know what I'm saying? So that the client would know exactly what's going on. Don't just come in with the assumption, oh yeah, you guilty, whatever. I'm just gonna, do minimum. That's not fair when it's a life.
Sabrina, we've done, like I said, 7 or 8 exonerees, and this story, your very, very personal story, shows the importance to have good lawyers, good representation. It's like they should be teaching your story in law school, where we learn criminal law and criminal process. I mean, it's 101, and the communication that you're talking about just shows how important it is. And I kind of love how your first lawyer, the crappy one, was so upset about his loss that he hooked you up and found Clive and the second team.
Yeah, he did. He turned out to be he turned out to be okay. My phone just wants to. I'm sorry, guys.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I'm sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. So you're acquitted. I can imagine you were elated and excited to get out of prison after 6.5 years.
Yes.
What did that feel like? Those first steps outside?
The only thing I thought about was trying to get to my son. My oldest son was 9 years old when I got out. That's the first place I went to see him.
Did he ever come visit you in prison, jail?
She brought him one time, but I ended up having to fight her 4 more years after I got out to get my son back.
Fight who?
She was his grandmother, because she wanted money, and it was about losing money, and she, just gave me hell to try to get my child back.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I caught hell with that. So, but it all worked itself out, because she was in my trial. She was one of the reasons why I got the death penalty.
Why? Wait, your grandmother was one reason you got the death penalty?
My grandmother, his grandmother.
And why is that?
Because she was like, the prosecution had subpoenaed her. And she was supposed to take the stand against me. But then when it came time for her to take the trial, to take the stand, she told him she wouldn't do it. She couldn't get up on the stand and lie, on her daughter-in-law like that. That's what she said.
Wait, I thought you said that she was one reason you were on death row, but if she didn't testify, how did she contribute?
I just feel like because her statements, all the statements that she gave, she said one day she seen me walking down the street, carrying my baby like a chicken or something. It's crazy. It was just crazy. I think what her thing was, she really thought that they were going to kill me and that she would be able to keep my son, because me and her never did see eye to eye. So she really wanted him. You know what I mean? So some people can just be evil. And at the time, that's exactly what she was. She was just determined to keep my child.
The state granted you $300,000 in compensation. How did you feel about that?
I wasn't happy, because they took everything else from me. I had to take care of my daughter's kidney disease. I had to take care of myself, and all I did was pay it back to the state in medical bills for her and for myself.
How hard was it reacclimating to society after this ordeal?
It was very hard, because I stayed in the same town. When I first got out, I refused to run, because I was trying to get my son back from her, and I refused for them to run me out of town. They told me, they said, well, you need to leave here because we don't want you here and all that. But I didn't care. I still stayed. I left in 2016.
Wow, that's a long time.
That's a long time. I got out in 95 and I left in 2016.
And where did you go?
I'm in Memphis, Tennessee, and the reason I moved up here is because they have a children's Lebanon hospital here that specializes in kidney care and stuff for my daughter. So I'm up here for her, keep her kidney, care.
So you have 3 more children since you've gotten out.
I have 2 more. I had 2 more children.
2 more children plus the one from before. So you have 3 children right now.
Children. Yes.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And how is tell my viewers and listeners, how's your life now, all these years later?
My life is wonderful. I mean, right now, the guy, it was another guy that was incarcerated when I was locked up. He sent me a letter. I forgot to tell you that in the very beginning. He sent me a letter, and he was saying that, you know, they can't do this in your case. He was a what you call jailhouse lawyer. I think that's what they call them back then. And he was saying they can't do this in your case. It's not right. You know, I'm going to reach out to some people I know and see, can we, you know, help you and this and that. So me and him started writing, and we wrote for from 1990 to all the way to 92, when they stopped inmates from writing from prison to prison. So I lost contact with him. And when I got out, I started doing events like right now. And I've been doing them since 96. And he was in a book that I had gotten from a lady at an event I did. And I said, I know this is not, you know, and I found him 25 years later, and we're together now.
Come on.
I'm not. I'm serious.
I love that. I love that part of the story.
Yeah,
That's
we're
fabulous.
together. He's a paralegal, and you know, we're good. We're really good. One of my sons is in the Army. My oldest son is the one that I had to fight to get back. He's here with me. And then I got my daughter. She's here with me. So
that is such a great ending to the story. I mean, congratulations on all of that. And you mentioned you're speaking and you're doing web, you know, podcasts like this. You also have a website you're involved in.
I do.
Tell me about that. Okay,
the website is where I had to sit and think about writing a book. So I wrote my first book, and it was called Sabrina Butler, Exonerated, the Sabrina Butler story. But I put it on hold because in Mississippi at the time, I was very much still scared. And I didn't tell all of my truth. So now that I'm no longer there, it's a tell-all book. So I'm working on the second part of it right now, and it should be out soon. We're in the ending stages of it where I tell it all, everything that happened to me. And I'm gonna post it soon as it's ready, but we're working on it. Matter of fact, I just got off of a live feed with Clive just before I came on with you to put his part in there. So I'm gonna put Clive in to explain exactly what was going on during those years, because we still stay in contact with each other. We've been in contact for years. He's God sent for me, him and Rob both. Because without them, I wouldn't be here.
No, you would not. You would not, Sabrina. I want to help promote your book. I want you to make sure you send me the links. Now this website,
I'll send you a book.
Oh, thank you so much.
Send your book.
That is kind. So you're also talking to state legislatures on reform, and you're actually moving some needles to get some and this is mostly about the death penalty. Is that correct?
Right. We've got to work with Witness to Innocence, and we are an organization comprised and work for only death row exonerees. And what we do is we go around to different states talking about the death penalty, and we have gotten the death penalty expunged in 23 states so far.
Congratulations. That is amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
So you're on a board of Witness Innocence. Is that the name of the organization?
It's witnesstoinnocence.org. If you go on there, you can see what all we do, and it shows all the speakers that are involved.
So that's it sounds like it's a full-time gig.
It is. I work a lot. And because I know this is what God wants me to do. And I choose to do this because closed mouth don't get fed, is what I've always learned. So you have to talk in order to change things. And I know that this was wrong that was done to me. And I know it's plenty more that is sitting in prison right now that is looking for the same type of help that I received. And those that are not alive, that have been killed unjustly. The same thing, their families are grieving because they knew that was wrong. So we have to change the system. We have to, because it's not right.
Does the witnesstoinnocence.org project, or people you've talked to, do they have an estimation of how many people are sitting on death row that are innocent?
I think if you go to DPIC is the one that I think they have an analysis of what's, how it's done and how many African Americans, Latinos, Caucasian, all that. Yeah, they do.
We've done some episodes on shaken baby syndrome cases.
Mm-hmm.
Your case kind of falls in that category. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. Yes. because at the time in Mississippi, they had a law where, or the hospitals had, where they had to say if a child came in looking some kind of way, they had to say it was abuse in order to not be sued. So if they went in and they didn't say abuse, then, they were culpable or whatever you call it, to get sued. So that's what happened back then in my case. They looked at my son and said, oh, this is child abuse, hey, we're going to charge, and the police officer didn't know what was happening. So they said, okay, yeah, well, we agree with you because you're, medical personnel. So you know what's going on, and I think that's what happens in a lot of cases. They just look at a child and they automatically assume without doing the research and trying to see what happened to the baby. And that's the way it was. And my son, he had a lot of problems. His kidneys were chock full of cysts. You could even tell that they were kidneys. His chronic bowel syndrome was so bad, and I didn't know it was that. You know what I'm saying? And if they had only did the job, their job to know that my child was sick, then they would have knew what he died from.
Right.
They would have knew.
Had there been a proper autopsy, had you had proper counsel asking the right questions, you could have gotten some answers.
Right. So that made me the first woman in the United States to be exonerated. And now it's 2 of us. I'm the first.
Is the second Julie Balmer?
No, it's Deborah Milkey out of Arizona.
Wait, second to be from death row.
From death row, yes.
So we've had Julie Balmer on our show, Open Mic, that was accused of killing her nephew, and it turns out he died from a medical issue, and she was released from prison. We don't have the death penalty here in Michigan, so but she was, I think, the first or second from the University of Michigan clinic to get her out, which is a crazy story. I'll send you a link to that.
Okay.
And I know that the websites people could donate to your causes.
Yes.
These are, I assume you're taking public donations for all that.
Yeah, they are. What I'm doing too is, I'm trying to keep myself extremely busy. I do a lot right now here in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm trying to start a halfway house for exonerated women and ex-offender women, because we have a lot of programs for men here, but none for females. And we also have a problem with the way this is done is that people that actually committed crimes, they have reentry programs for them, but they don't have anything for exonerees. And it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be.
I agree. Do you know a law firm down there, the Reeves law firm?
Yes. Yes.
They're good people. If you ever need anything down there, they are very, very good people.
Yeah, I know.
The other thing I was thinking, just a coincidence, you're telling me about all these messed up laws in Mississippi, and I don't think this is a coincidence, but last night we're in bed watching The Help. You remember that movie? You ever see that movie?
Yeah.
Wow. And it's all about Mississippi. It's all about how messed up Mississippi is. And this is in the 50s. And now you're telling me about it in the 90s.
Yeah.
And it's shocking, yet it's not shocking based upon how bad Mississippi is.
When you can go to Columbus, Mississippi, and go in their post office and see a mural on the wall of the black people in the field picking cotton and the white man sitting on a horse. Now today, they still have that mural up there. That is crazy. Then they got the Confederate soldier standing at the court where you get your death sentence in life or whatever, and he's standing there with the flag draped over his shoulder. But then when you walk around the back of him, you see that it's the KKK hood. It looks exactly like it. You know what I'm saying? And I just think that type of mentality, we don't need that. I mean, we all bleed the same. I'm so sick of prejudice, racism, all that stuff. I am tired of that. You know what I'm saying? We just need to learn how to get along as a people. That's what the nation needs. I mean, I'm tired of that. It's crazy.
I'm 1,000% with you, Sabrina. Last question I have for you is, what is your message for people who are sitting behind bars, who know they're innocent? What kind of hope, what kind of message do you have for them?
My message for you guys, if y'all are watching and can hear this, don't give up. Keep writing. Educate yourself as much as possible on your case, and any legal terms that you don't know, find them out. Always, always do not accept no. Because where once somebody will say no, somebody gonna say yes. That's what I did. And that's why I did not stop. Because I know if you gotta write 1,000 letters a day, I don't care. Do it. Do it to save your life.
I think those are perfect words to end on. Sabrina Butler Smith, thank you so much for being on Open Mic, sharing your story with us. It's powerful. I've had goosebumps half the episode. So nice to meet you.
Thank you.
And if you ever need anything in Michigan, please call me.
All right, Mike.
All right.
See you later.
Take
Bye.
care. Wow. That was emotional. That was another crazy exoneree story from a really beautiful woman, Sabrina Butler Smith. I don't think I'll be visiting Mississippi anytime soon. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Send this on to somebody who may need to hear this. Donate to Sabrina's websites. We'll have them all in the show notes for you all to see. And thank you again for being here for Open Mic.